Hello, everybody. So good to see you again. Kyle Allen with Vaco, and I am so excited for the guest I have on today, JT O'Donnell, CEO
Hello.
of Work It Daily. And she has been in the career business about as long as I have. I think I'm 17 years. She's 18, been in the search, and now she's doing career coaching and just what I perceive as just saying some truth to some people that are driving, trying to grow your career, and really wanted to kind of talk today. Just how do we jumpstart our career, JT, and not even jumpstart, but how do we take control of it? And so I wanted you to kind of just throw some wisdom on us, talk today about just the individual itself and how they control their career.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people out there that are like, well, they're waiting for their next job, or they're waiting for this, or I want to be asked. And how can they professionally kind of take control of the reins without obviously just running people over? And so I'm excited to hear from you. And definitely, Leonard, thanks so much for your comments. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section. We'd love to. We'll definitely get to all those as well once we get started. But JT, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Kyle. It's great to be here. And I love this topic because when I first became a career coach, so I left corporate America. I say 18 plus years, but obviously it's been over 20 now. So I left because I just couldn't believe how many people were unhappy in their careers, including myself, right? So you're in the staffing industry and we only get paid when we place someone. So what we see are all the people that don't get placed.
That's right.
And the frustration that they experience. And I thought there's got to be something wrong here. And so I left corporate America and said, I'm going to go figure out what is happening. And what was happening is that while businesses and employers constantly evolve, we as a workforce, we're not evolving. We're using a very outdated, I can't say that early enough this morning, outdated set of rules that we're hanging on to. And we're still using them 20 years later, even though I've been trying to coach people out of this. And as a result, it puts us on a path of career dissatisfaction. We ultimately are going to end up unhappy because we don't set out correctly. And so that's one of the things that I really want to change and talk about today. And I think when I became a career coach and I got some training in it, one of the most powerful things for me was learning about neuro-linguistic programming and this, the simplified idea of negative self-talk. And there's really a science behind it. And I think that's become a lot more mainstream now. We hear about it all the time in social media. Yeah. But I challenge everybody that's listening today to think about the fact that you were programmed with a bunch of outdated and wrong career rules from very early on. So the decisions that you've made, the paths that you've taken, the opportunities that you've seen or not seen are directly related to that. And I think the simple answer to your question, and I'll finally get to it, is that you need to sit down and challenge every assumption you have about your situation, every single assumption, especially when you're using words like we were talking about before the show. I can't, it's not possible, that's not an option. Says who? Why? Yeah. I mean, if you really sit down and challenge everything that you're thinking about in career, you will realize that a lot of it is false. And even if it is true, there's probably a way to get around it, but not until you own up to it, not until you really look at it. So,
well, it becomes a self-belief, JT, of this negative, I can't, and all of a sudden everything in your life becomes that, right? You blame others, you're blaming anybody else but you, and the ownership you need to take about how to fix your situation. Like, you can. And you're like, well, how? Like, well, this is my big thing of like, just start doing, just start being positive, just start the small things that lets you lead to bigger deals. Like, you just don't all of a sudden become whatever you're trying to become.
Yeah.
Like, I always say this every day. I've said this to my kids a lot, is like, I'm a big golfer. I love sports. Like, everybody loves the green jacket being put on the guy. Everybody loves the trophy being held up. Like, that's like the moment. But like, what you don't see is the amount of effort, blood, sweat, and tears that goes into just the time it takes to become that. And then also just the self-doubt in the moment, right? Of the golfer that won. He was like, I was in tears the morning before I played because I wasn't ready for the moment. I didn't think I was ready. Right. Yeah. And so like something had to switch where he's like, let's go, And so I'm like, I want people to realize that it's just, I think today it's the quick gratification world we live in is hindering so many this development opportunities.
Oh, 100%. So one of the books that I read early on that I still recommend to this day is written by a guy named Alfie Kohn. It's called Punished by Rewards. He wrote it 60 years ago. And in it, he talks about praise, A's, bribes. Like we are bribed to do things, extrinsic motivators. But what's happened is we've lost our sense of internal motivation. We don't do anything unless we can see what we're going to get. And that's, I think, what you're talking about, because we all say, well, I don't feel motivated. I'm going to wait until I feel motivated. That is not going to happen. Your brain has already scientifically codified the experience as a negative one. So nothing is going to make this suddenly be pleasant for you and make you jump out of bed and want to do it. What you have to recognize, you've got to call your brain out on that and say, this is fake negativity. This is fake anxiety. It's just trying to hold me back when all I need to do is just take a step and do it. And that's, once people start to do that, that's where that snowball effect happens in a good way. And they start to see that momentum. And then all of a sudden, you don't think about it anymore. I think it's, a great way to describe it is everyone can think about something they do without thinking about it. And people will go to them and say, oh, that looks so hard. And what are you talking about? Well, if you go back and look somewhere you started and you were internally motivated to do it and you kept doing it and kept doing it. It's like people with exercise, people who love exercise. They didn't love it when they started, but over time they got that, that ancient brain, that negative self-talk that's been telling them it's awful, it's painful, it's terrible. All of a sudden now they love it. So you can't tell me that there isn't a single person listening today that can't change their career situation by starting with recognizing the negative self-talk and just acknowledging it and saying, okay, I hear you. Oh, you want to cause me some pain. You want me to not get up and do this today and see what happens. And that's really how we get people going.
Yeah. I think it's that first step, right? I think a lot of people too, they're like, well, I don't know exactly where I'm going. I don't know the entire end game. And so they get paralysis by analysis a little bit too in their career of like, well, I know this is comfortable. This is easy, but like, I'm not sure where I want to go. I'm like, well, just do a little bit, just make a step, just have some conversations, telling people what you're thinking, talk to people, like get a mentor. There's different things you can do and you can control. Like that's the whole thing. I'm like, well, I'm looking, how do I find a mentor? Ask. Mm-hmm. That's it. Just ask. And then you don't have to be formal about it, right? In your career, just like, hey, can I have a conversation? Can we sit down and just talk about my career? Yeah. Because I think if you put this, JT, if somebody comes to me like, Kyle, will you be my mentor for the next 5 years and meet with me weekly? And you're like, whoa, it just seems like so intense to me. And the reality is like, just have a relationship, just have a conversation, just one, right? And it's crazy the amount of people that will I say this countlessly to these younger people that are older, that have been there, done that, will give you time if you come and genuinely want to hear. Mm-hmm. And you're ready to learn and you're ready to do something about it. But the people that are just the people that are just like apathy, whatever, just going about it, whatever. And they're like, well, I wish I had that. Do you? I don't know what's your plan to get there to do, like go, right? And so I don't know how much you're seeing that as far as individuals, just like
we're a ton. I mean, and let's note the fact that the pandemic has put everybody into a massive spiraled career depression.
Oh,
so 40 million people quit their jobs in 2021. That's the most documented number of people in a single year since we've been documenting it, right? So obviously a lot going on with people mentally. Profound shift. I call it a tipping point. We're never going back. The whole world has stepped back and said, if I'm going to work, I'm going to finally figure out and align it with my purpose, with my values, with my needs, make work for me. And so I'm actually happy about that, because as somebody who for 20 years has been trying to rattle people and teach them one by one how to do this, I feel like there's a moment here where I've got a captive audience where you get 1 million people to learn the new rules to career success. Yeah. And then they teach the next million. And we actually get some, fundamental shift here, because people are feeling helpless, golden handcuffs, I'm stuck. My employer's up here. I'm down here. It's either quit and get away. Well, how long is that going to work for you? Eventually you're going to need to figure out a career plan. And it's going to involve working with someone, whether you're an independent or you go to work full-time for a company. You're still going to need to figure this out, unless somehow you became independently wealthy during the pandemic, right? But that's the thing that concerns me as we go forward here, because people are still sort of in their timeout, and especially so working on their mental health or physical health. But we are going to get to a point where everyone's got to get back to work, and they left those jobs for a reason. Nobody wants the bad jobs. So it's the most competitive time to look for work in the history of looking for work right now, because the jobs everybody wants, everyone's fighting for. So are you figuring that out? Do you know what you want? Do you know how to go get it? I mean, that's the stuff that people need to dig into right now in order to make it happen going forward.
JT, so listen, somebody's watching this and they're like, God, you're speaking to me right now. I'm all this. I need to do something. Like, give everybody listening two or three things that they're like, hey, how do I jumpstart? We've talked about them, but like if you were sitting down with somebody that's 10 years into their career in a rut, which I'm sure there's plenty watching, what do they do? What would you recommend?
So when I left corporate America to become a career coach, I spent that first year building up my methodology and really figuring out. I'm an engineer by degree. I'm a science nerd. I grew up in a family, very logical family.
You love a good methodology then, if that's the case.
You know it, and I'm about to drop one on you because that's exactly where I went. I was like, I need a methodology that I can teach people that in any situation, quite frankly, you can use this. But obviously, I applied in career. So I call it the GLOW method, GLOW. And it stands for gain perspective, illuminate the goal, own your actions, work it daily. And you can imagine my company's called Work It Daily because that fourth step is the one that gets you the end result.
Yep.
But if you think about this, if you are in a rut right now, step one for you right now is gain perspective. Your perspective right now is a huge wall in front of you that you can't get past. So if we don't break that wall down with some new ideas, some new thoughts, some new assumptions, some new ways of looking at this, you're going nowhere. So how do you do that? Well, you suggested one way. Is there someone you admire? Ask them for a conversation. You need their energy right now, their perspective. Are you reading books? Can I slide that in there shamelessly right now? Like the new one that came out last week called Awakening Your Inner Workplace Renegade. This is the book. This is the manifesto of the workplace evolution, right? I wrote it. It's 51 pages. You'll read it in a day and you'll have that new perspective around what's going on, right? So read, listen to podcasts, listen to LinkedIn Lives. Just submerge yourself in this topic right now and you will watch things shift in your brain. That's a scientific fact, but if you keep doing nothing except complaining and saying there's a wall up in front of me, then nothing's going to happen. So that's gaining perspective. After that, you illuminate the goal. Somewhere along there, you're going to see your first goal, the thing you want to do. I'm not talking the big lofty goal. I'm talking what's something you can do right now that points you in that direction. Let's just do that. And you were talking about people being worried about taking that first step. One of my writing partners, Dale Doughton, such an amazing man. When I first met him, he said, JT, experiments never fail. So I always have to give him credit for that telling me that phrase. But if you look at this whole journey as nothing more than an experiment, and if you're just willing to experiment every day, meaning have a conversation, read, do something, you can't fail. You can't fail in that. So go that route. You'll illuminate the goal. You'll see that one thing you should try right now. And it's just an experiment. You're going to learn from it. You're going to grow. And then you're going to own your actions. At some point in time, you're going to get really clear and go, that's a habit I need to break. That's a thing I need to stop saying. That will come clear to you and you will own that. And then that's when you'll have a plan and you'll work it daily and you'll get your results, like you said. And that amazing moment will come. But as we both know, once you've trained yourself in this process, because I use it for everything, it's actually the process that is more joyful and more impactful than the actual win at the end. Because of the fact that I know I did this myself. I figured it out myself.
Yeah.
That's intrinsic motivation. The GLOW method is how to regain your intrinsic motivation to do something. And that, people ask that all the time. It goes back to, I don't know how to get started. You do the GLOW method, you follow the steps, you get your intrinsic motivation. And all of a sudden, you're off and running. And then people say, why was it so hard? It wasn't. It's just that nobody's teaching us this. And that's why I think it's frustrating to me. School is not teaching it. Employers certainly aren't teaching it. Our society at large isn't teaching it. And so we remain helpless because people aren't surrounded with the right information yet.
Yeah. Talk about the process you're going through your book as far as getting people to sitting down. I would imagine it's writing, a lot of writing. I do that as well as far as going through kind of my thoughts and different things like that and desires and where I'm going. Because I think if I write things down or even saying them out loud to somebody, all of a sudden I'm like, is that right? Is that where I should be going? Right. Because I think your head, the mental game is a bad place. Right. And so I think retraining that brain, if you're naturally negative, is tough. And so walk through that, kind of getting started through that, planning that process.
Yeah. So the first step in the process is to write out your career story. So that's that major motion picture, that epic novel that's on repeat in your head. Yeah. So I have people go back to the very beginning and I say, I want you to go all the way back to the earliest moment where you feel it impacted your career. And from that point forward, tell me the story. So for some people, it's like they were little or they graduated from college. Somewhere in there, you've got a starting point of where you think about things that have happened in your life that impacted your career. And then write that whole thing out, put it away, come back to it, write it out some more. So it's going to be long. I mean, I think I had one person at some point, it was like 42 pages. Her document was long, but she got it all out there. And you're going to finally say, this is it. I can't write anymore. This is the story.
Totally.
Put it away for a day, come back. And then I want you to go through and I want you to circle every negative word. Every negative word. And you will see exactly where your problem lies.
Yeah.
Because the reality is your story is 100% subjective, like every story is. It's not fact. And people get so defensive when they hear that. So what do you mean it's not fact? I said, it's not fact. This is your interpretation of your life. Someone could have had the exact same life and a totally different career story. So you need to go look at all those places where you were negative and challenge yourself there and say, why am I assuming that? And how can I reframe that moment? Was it a learning moment? How can I look at it differently? And what you do is you go change all those negative words into neutral words. I'm not asking you to be fake positive. I would never.
Yeah.
I would never, you can't go from negative to positive. There's a neutral phase. But you can absolutely neutralize those negative words into something more objective. Now reread the story to yourself and watch what happens. You immediately have a different emotion.
Yeah.
Because it's better. It's more even. It's got flat notes and high notes, but we're getting rid of the low notes. You do that, now you can start to open up those possibilities for yourself. That's where people are stuck. They're hanging on to past things that they've codified as failures or setbacks or, somebody hurt them, this or that, myself included. I mean, it never stops. Let me just be clear with everybody. It never stops. I practice what I preach. When I hit a wall with something I'm working on in my career, I sit down and write it out. And every single time I've got the blame game going on. I've got negative stuff going on and I catch myself and I have to rewrite it and rethink about it. Sometimes I need to talk about it with somebody, get them to kind of, give me the pat in the back and the, kick in the pants at the same time. But you get out of it the moment you start recognizing it and going, you know what, that's an interpretation, which means I can change the interpretation.
JT, this is an interesting question with this. And we're talking about everybody does this, right? At some point or another. Why do we do that? And this is a bigger question. I mean, you may not have this is kind of just going to you of how do you get unstuck? How, these people in your life that are God, they are constantly negative, constantly saying negative things, constantly complaining about the situation they're in, blaming others. Why do we do that? What's the core to that, JT?
Oh, it's really simple, actually. Negativity comes from missed expectations. It's plain and simple. So really negative people have constant expectations that are missed, that are not met. So if you want to be happy in life, truly happy in life, stop expecting anything. Just stop. And people go, come on, JT, you can't. Well, of course, I get it. We all, it's human nature to expect something. We do something and hope we're going to get something in return. But if you can get better at reminding yourself that nothing is a given, that you're doing this because you want to, and that, hey, it would be great if this works out, and you need to do this for it to potentially work out. But if it doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It doesn't mean I failed. It doesn't mean somebody didn't like me. It just didn't work out. This is, again, where we take these moments and we make them super personal when we shouldn't. So if you really want to be a lot happier, lower those expectations. Check yourself. What were you expecting in that moment? Why did you think you should expect that? And allow yourself to grieve it, but let it go, because all you're doing is hurting yourself by having so many expectations and such high expectations at that. If you can't handle it, that's a problem. The most successful people I know, they set high goals.
Right.
They set things they want to achieve, but they don't get frustrated. They just keep going.
It's they know the process, right? They've gotten
right. The first time it doesn't go their way, the expectation isn't to give up and be upset. They just, they might be bummed for a day, they sleep on it, and they go get up and do it again. Totally. And that's where they found their joy, right? Again, it's that intrinsic motivation to do.
JT, talk about the fear of failure a little bit. And I've dealt with this with my kids as a dad and other people I have come across, and what they're talking about, well, I don't do that. Is why? And it always comes down to the root cause of well, I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to put myself out there. This isn't me. Well, what is you? But it all comes down to just nobody likes to fail, right? And talk about that a little bit with folks that come to you for career coaching, and you're forcing them to change a lot of different behaviors in what they do and how they approach themselves from a career standpoint.
Big.
And I think that's the biggest piece to understand, is that getting comfortable failing needs to be the new winning, in my opinion. And I talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So the first thing is, again, not focusing on the outcome as a win or a loss. focusing on the effort, the input.
Yeah.
Did you do the work? That's what we'll celebrate, regardless of the outcome. I think that's huge. I think it's unfortunate, going back to Alfie Kohn, we started giving grades like A's and praise and these things, and we like that stuff. Then we very quickly don't want to fail because, fail associated with bad feelings. So,
Right.
That's just in all of us. And it's something that we all need to work on and learning as much as we can. And then this idea of experiments never fail. Once you start to experiment a lot and you just do, and you get into that habit, that feels so good. You get less worked up about winning or losing. I saw a social media post this week, and this woman was talking about a professor who gave a photography class, split them in half and said to one, your grade will be completely graded on the perfect photo. You submit one photo this semester, but it needs to be perfect, your best work. To the other half, he said, you need to give me 100 photos. If you give me 100, you get an A. If you give me 90, you get a B, right? So obviously, what did that group do? They all did 100 photos.
Right.
The other one did only one. But then he looked at the actual quality of the work and who gave the best photos. A lot of people would assume, well, it's the person that agonized over getting it right and getting it perfect. No, hands down, the group that had to submit 100 photos had the better photos because they experimented, they played around, they just did stuff to do it, and they got there faster and better than the person that agonized. And they probably had a way better semester to boot. I don't know that he measured that, but I certainly think you'd have a much better time. If that story alone doesn't get people to stop worrying about the failing and just do,
right.
I don't know what else does. But, for us, it's about putting people in a training class. We have videos and say, just watch this video. All right, do this little exercise. Now do this video. And all of a sudden, sort of a little breadcrumb technique, they're in it and they're doing it. So I would advise anyone out there listening right now, you cannot change in a vacuum. This is not going to happen by yourself. We always say any kind of meaningful change is going to take three things. Right? You're going to need some kind of course, information, whatever. So we'll call it a course. That's C. You're going to need some coaching because you're going to need that feedback from somebody about, as you're learning, setbacks, things that you experience. And you're going to need community. You should never do this alone. You want to be around other people who are going through what you're going through, who are also trying to fix what you want to fix. That is one of the best motivators ever. And that's why, we built an online career coaching platform with the 3 C's. Because over 20 years of doing this, I realized you can sit with me one-on-one and we can have a great conversation. And you're going to walk away. You're going to be completely alone and you've got nothing to keep teaching you or coaching you. So I stopped coaching in that model. I don't think traditional career coaching works anymore. Putting you in an online career coaching community where there's courses on demand, where there's coaching, certified coaches that you can talk to, and where there's all these people talking about the same problems you're talking about, now that's where stuff happens. So, we've been doing that as, again, science nerd, as an experiment. That's what you need. So anyone listening right now, go find yourself 3 C's, courses, coaching, community, however you do it, however you piece it together, that's where you'll get the change.
Because I think a lot of people feel like they're alone in a lot of this. JT. And I with a lot of different topics, we'll keep it to career for now. But I think we'll finish on this. And if you have any questions for us, let us know. And we'll get to those kind of towards the end. But JT, talk about as far as finding out who they are as an individual, right? And we're talking about, okay, they've started the taking the step, they're doing that. Now they're trying to find out who they are. What are some certain assessments or different things that internally they can turn themselves and be like, they can put the mirror up and be like, okay, who am I? Who have I been born to be? Who am I supposed to be? Who am I? What drives me? Like, what would you say hey, these are a couple things that to take, to do, to help them become more self-aware of who they are?
Yeah. So when I became a career coach, the way that I started working with people is I built my own set of assessment tools because I realized I needed to see where I needed to see where you were in terms of life balance, because to me, there's 8 key areas of life. And if one's coming down, they're all coming down. So you need to see how they're connected. And a lot of times their career will be in a bad place, but also some other aspect of their life. So we talk about that. So you do want to try to see the connectivity between your career and how it's impacting other areas of your life. From there, we start to look at things like how you like to create value on the job. And that is such an important thing because we keep talking about this internal motivation. How you like to create value means how you want to spend your day. What do you want to be doing to get paid? Because there's nothing more satisfying to get paid for doing something that you want to be doing in the first place.
Yeah.
This is the dilemma that I found. So in 2015, so 7 years ago, I built a 20-question quiz And all you do is go and it asks you this question. You say, would you rather do this or this? Would you rather do this or this? And when you're done, it tells you your predominant workplace personas. There are 8 workplace personas, and we need all 8 in the workplace. They're how they create value, how they like to do work. But you have 2 or 3 that you're dominant in. And if you know what your dominant workplace persona is, now you can go find jobs that match it. And I can't tell you how many people, had over 100,000 people take this quiz. And people will come to me and say, it's spot on accurate. And now I completely understand why I hate my job, because I am not doing anything in the space of how I want to create value. I'm good at my job, right? I can do my job, but I don't enjoy it, right? Because you're not creating value the way you want to create value. So if there's one thing you should do, it's take the quiz. It's free.
JT, where do we find it? Where do we go?
Workitdaily.com/quiz. That's it. Workitdaily.com/quiz. And this quiz will get you going, right? So then you're learning about your value. You're thinking about your situation. The other big thing you want to learn about is your personality, because we know, being in recruiting, that we don't just hire on experience. We have to make sure that you'll fit the organization, that your personality will fit the organization. And so understanding your dominant personality style, it's not bad or good. I have 4 styles. They're all good. But understanding your style and its strengths and weaknesses can also help you figure out what kind of job that you should be in. You know, whether or not you want to be a leader. We were talking about before the show. Everyone thinks they want to be a leader. I can tell you right now, everyone's not built to be a leader. And not everyone has the communication style to be a leader. Right. So whether you're more, extroverted versus introverted can impact what type of work you want to do. Do you want to be on a team? Do you want to work independently? So your communication style matters a lot. And understanding that, along with how you like to create value, the Career Decoder quiz, those 2 quizzes alone will really open your mind up to the type of work you should be doing. After that, if you're digging this, come over to Work It Daily. I actually have a professional strengths class. It has 7 tools in it. And you take all 7 tools and we teach you everything you need to know about yourself completely. So it's over at Work It Daily in our courses catalog. It's $29 and you'll learn everything you need to know about yourself. But for free, I always love giving people free resources. So the course I gave you is a great place to start, and it's totally free. You'll get videos and training and all that good stuff just from that alone.
This was awesome, JT. And Thomas, you mentioned, why are folks not hiring you? I would talk to JT. I'd get it to workitdaily.com/quiz. That'd be the first thing I would do to find out kind of what you're driven to, because you may be in an industry that's not for you. And then thanks, Sydney, for putting the link up for your book. And workitdaily.com needs to be looked at by a lot of people. Fantastic resource. JT, this was awesome. Thank you so much. There's your handle at j.t.o'donnell for anything on the gram, or I would imagine Twitter as well. You're pretty findable. Google her. She's everywhere. This has been fantastic. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us and with me, just kind of taking control of the career. So hopefully we can do this again soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kyle. This was great. I love talking about this stuff.
Thanks, JT. All righty. Bye.